order. You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man.
Hundreds of children who've been sexually abused are being refused compensation by a government agency. In a few cases, because they're said to have given consent. The legal age of consent is 16. In the last hour, a spokesperson for the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority said they were urgently reviewing their guidelines. We've been talking to one young woman who was assaulted by an older man when she was just 14. Although he was jailed, she was denied compensation, leaving her feeling devastated, as Victoria MacDonald reports.
Rotherham, Rochdale, Oxford, Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, to name but a few. The list of child abuse and grooming cases over the past few years that have left behind hundreds of victims. Yet it's been revealed that some have been refused compensation because, according to a government agency, they consented.
It's changed my life, really. From an innocent child to having to grow up very quickly.
This woman was groomed at the age of 14 by an older man. He's been jailed along with a group of other men. It was a shocking case, although to protect her identity, we won't reveal the details.
I didn't realise how bad it actually was, and the way they were, although it was very threatening and quite scary, I just thought it was normal. And because I knew there was other people going through it, I just thought, you know, it's just the way people were, really. I didn't realise how messed up it was.
But when she applied to the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority, this is what they said.
From the information provided by the police, there is simply not enough evidence to show on the balance of probabilities that you had been the victim of non-consensual sexual acts. You appear to consent to sexual activity with the suspect.
The charity Victim Support says up to 700 children have been refused compensation. Some of those because although they were legally underage, they didn't resist. There was no violence. Now a coalition of charities is calling for the law to be changed, to recognise that just because these children didn't fight back doesn't mean they consented. After all those high-profile cases like Jimmy Savile or the Rotherham grooming cases, it was agreed that those children had not been listened to, especially not listened to by the authorities. And yet here, according to Victim Support and the other charities, these are the children not being listened to again because the Compensation Authority is saying that they consented to those sexual acts. The authority was set up to compensate blameless victims of violent crime. This dispute, therefore, centres around whether sexual abuse of a child is violent.
Well, I think you've got to try to understand the frustration at this. It's almost a sense that they haven't been believed yet again. And so in a psychological sense, it really does set them back. Yes, there is money involved, but there's also a sense of recognition by the state that they have endured pain and suffering.
Compensation, when it is given, ranges between £1,000 and £44,000. But this woman says it wasn't about the money, it was about closure.
I know people that have had walked in a shop, tripped over something and had a £7,000 payout. It isn't a car accident, it's been through the courts. They have had sentences. I just don't know how much more they want. I thought, who are you to judge me? Why did I go to court? Yeah, I have put the bad people in prison, but now you're saying that I'm in the wrong.
Victoria MacDonald reporting. Well, we did ask the Ministry of Justice for an interview. They oversee the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority, but no one was available. They did, however, send us this statement from an authority spokesperson saying, "Our guidelines are intended to make sure that controlling and abusive behaviour is taken into account when handling compensation applications." And they say they're urgently reviewing their guidelines to ensure they are robust enough to deal with cases where grooming may be a factor. Well, joining me now from Westminster is the Rotherham MP Sarah Champion, who's the Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities. Well, the authorities say that they intend to make sure that controlling and abusive behaviour is taken into account. Can you see that?
Well, it's not happening, and basically I'm actually questioning if the law is being breached. The law is very clear that a child cannot consent to sex, yet we have a government agency that is saying that effectively that these children are colluding with their abuse and they are denying them the compensation that they rightly deserve. And as the lady speaking said, this isn't about money for these victims. This is about enabling them to become survivors, to put this behind them and recognising that they have been failed and that a crime has been taken against them. And effectively what the state is doing is going, nah, we don't agree that. We think you were part of it and we're not going to give you what's duly yours.
Well, what needs to happen then to change this? I mean, is it all in the hands of this agency? I mean, who elected them?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's basically, it comes down to the Ministry of Justice. I've got in touch with them demanding that they, well, basically bring their guidance up to date. But this agency was only formed in 2012, so they can't say it's sort of a historic anomaly.
So it doesn't need an Act of Parliament or anything. It's basically down to a minister giving new guidance to this agency to say, pay these people.
If the minister has any heart, then I would hope by the end of today a letter will have gone out to the agency telling them that what they're doing is, well, basically immoral as far as I'm concerned, and also I'm not even sure if it's legal, and they need to do something about this.
I mean, people will be staggered, I think, to learn that someone who's been through a criminal process where a judge and jury have decided what happened, then get judged again by what, I don't know by who, by some sort of official. Why are they being judged at all? I mean, shouldn't there be a process in which, if you are a victim of crime, you are eligible for compensation?
Well, in other accidents, injuries, crimes, then yes, there's a very clear sort of scale of what happens. And I have to say that about a year ago, I was approached by a constituent that this happened to. And it's not that I didn't believe what she was saying. She'd managed to, because she was an incredibly brave witness in some cases, she managed to get convictions of her perpetrators. I just thought, well, no, there must be, she's not got this quite right. And then I looked into it, and because part of the grooming process of her was getting her to witness criminal activity, the compensatory body said that she was actually involved in crime, even though that's part of the grooming and is well recognised, and therefore they denied her the compensation. But she's now in the situation that the police and CPS have come back to her and asked her to go forward and help them with forthgoing trials. And, well, you can imagine what she thinks about that. So it's not just the victim, it's not just the survivors, it's the whole of our justice system that's being undermined because of this.
And if the ministry don't do anything, is there anything you can do, or anyone else?
I think what we need is for the charities and the survivors to work together and make the people aware of this, because I genuinely don't believe that most people in this country realises that there is an agency that is making these arbitrary decisions of who is worthy of getting compensation for horrific abuse that happened to them as children. It's just not acceptable.
Sarah Champion, thank you very much.